send you a recording. Okay.
Okay, welcome everyone to Roots of England, and I've got Helen with me today. Helen's very kindly agreed to come on the channel and to tell us a little bit about her travels around England, her love of England and English heritage, English history and culture, and we are delighted to have her on. So, Helen, welcome onto the channel. How are you doing?
Hi, David. Thank you. I'm doing really well. So, thank you so much for inviting me. I enjoy going to England quite a bit. So, it's a good experience here.
Oh, amazing. Well, just before we get into your kind of experience in traveling in England and your love of England, can you just tell us a little bit about how did you find Roots of England YouTube? Was it through school, was it? Or can you
Yeah,
remind us?
yeah. I actually found Roots of England through Skool. I
Okay.
have a channel on Skool, so it's more of a work channel. So I was just looking at, different groups that they have of seeing, just some fun interests and things that I was interested in on the fun side of life.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant. So for anybody who doesn't know, just quickly, so Roots of England also has a school community. We'll drop the link into the description of this video today. Helen is one of the valued members of Roots of England school community. We've got 62 members now, I think, and we discuss all things England and Englishness, history, nature, countryside, heritage, culture. And Helen also has her own school community as well, which I'll ask you about towards the end of the video, Helen.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So, so with all that said and done, then, so can I ask you, what do you, we'll start with an open-ended question. What do you love about England?
I love mainly the countryside there. I initially got kind of involved in England, not really England so much, but my grandfather actually originated from Austria. So they traveled through Austria into northeastern Germany and then migrated at that point into Orangeburg, South Carolina, in the Americas here. So that's kind of like what my heritage is there. So when I think it was like in 1995, my in-laws were stationed in Frankfurt, Germany. So
Okay.
we went and took a visit with them. And then I just knew then that I just loved, being in the German area there. And so then later on, I started watching some Viking movies and The Last Kingdom. And I know a lot of English people don't actually watch that, only Americans watch that. But it's really intriguing. It's a lot of history in it. Of course, some made-up history too, but
Yeah.
there is a lot of history in it. So, like all the places that they travel to was like really interesting to me. So then I just started doing some research on it. And I just started planning my trip. And so I've
Amazing.
been to England now for two or three times ever since my first trip. So that's kind of how I got hooked up on it. But I just love I was raised by my grandparents, so I kind of have like an old soul type, thing with me. So I just enjoyed, like the open space and even visiting like cemeteries and where people have walked and that
Mhm.
type of thing. I'm not that big of a hiker, so I didn't walk up, the wall or any of those kind of things. So, but I enjoy, just like mingling with the local people. That's really why I go more than anything, It's not like going to the tourist places. I go everywhere but the tourist places. And
That's an
I,
interesting. Sorry to interrupt you there. That's an interesting because two things that you mentioned there. The first one was when you were talking about the historical films and things maybe that Americans watch, but maybe British people don't, English people don't. And there is there a sense in America with all of American people that maybe England is London and they don't really know what lies beyond London? Because I know for you, you've done a lot of travel around the country. So England to you is so much more than London, isn't it? And the other thing I wanted to ask you about is You mentioned the term old soul there. So I just wanted to ask you, what does that mean to you, and how does that fit into your kind of like love of England as well?
Well, I kind of think, and prepare, like even to talk with you, David, I came across some things, some memories came back to me. I think a lot of it for me with the old soul comes back from, I probably had a unique situation in growing up since I was raised by my grandparents, prominently my grandfather. So, his sister actually didn't speak any English. She still spoke German. And
Hmm.
so in Orangeburg, when they migrated, they were in just like a German community that they stayed in. So my grandfather raised me, and I was like the youngest. I was the baby. All my brothers and sisters were much older than me. So I think he instilled, like a lot of culture in me that like it's not something that you really teach somebody, but it's just a way of life. So
Hmm.
like for me, as a lot of my friends will ask me, "Oh, Helen, how can you go into England like by yourself, and do all of these things?" But for me, it's like when I land there, I'm just home. It's not like a foreign land that I have stepped on.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
that's kind of my old soul with that. We did like my grandparents, we did like Sunday dinners. So we had like this huge table, just like you would have in England. A lot of times, when you're going out to eat, you're eating more of in a family style situation. So we had these Sunday dinners that my grandparents, they were Protestant, so you have to go to church first. We come back home. We have the big 10, 12, seated table, all my brothers and sisters and that type of thing. So Sunday, so we kept some of those traditions like that. Because my grandmother, she was actually Irish. So we just kind of, so I think it, in my soul, it just ingrains it in there. But that's why, like, I don't feel like fearful even, when I go to England. Of course, some
Hmm.
places of England I would prefer to be in some places, that, it's just like a spend a night thing and I'm out of there.
Yeah, yeah, I understand. So before we get into your travels around England and specifically where you've been, you mentioned about your grandfather who was German. So your kind of understanding of the Second World War and the historical
Yes.
significance around that will be you will have had the two kind of like different interpretations. Can you tell us a little bit around that, if that's okay?
Yes, yes. Yeah, my grandfather, he actually fought both, and he was in the Navy, so he fought both in World War One and at the end of World War Two because he was a little bit older in age at that time. So, the way they were drafting, they're getting all the
Mhm.
younger guys, first. But I think for him, like my memories of that it was kind of difficult for him, because it's like he was fighting against his own people, so he was fighting against his own homeland of where he came from. So, but I do a lot of research, with things like that. You never know, like what memories that, come back to you with that. But
Mhm. Mhm.
I actually was kind of weird. Actually, my grandfather's last name was Stivender, but the original name from Austria actually is Steenwinder. So what this means is strong mountain. So that was the area of Austria that they were in. And so he was a really strong man. And
Yeah.
so what I really ran across was this man, his name is Otto Steinwinder. And so he was part of some of the German parties and things like that. So I'm like, that man looks just like my grandfather. And so it just made me dig into it. But that's just how that kind of ends up being. But my grandparents, they never traveled back out of the country or anything.
Mhm.
So and we had like different people because we were like seven kids. So we had different people that would come in like and take care of us, even kind of like an old English, custom with that where you have people working inside the house. So some of those things just transposed, I
Hmm.
think like
Hmm.
naturally. So
Hmm.
that's just, where some of that I think comes from me.
So a bit of a cultural melting pot with your with your German grandfather, the Irish influence, obviously your love for England as well. And so before you even visited England for the first time, you felt a connection. You'd done quite a bit of research. You were really looking forward to coming and exploring. So what year did you first come to England?
Um,
And where did you go? Where did your trip take you?
Yeah, I actually I do bookkeeping for construction contractors, but I actually had started a little business where I was doing travel, so I did travel for quite a while. So I basically planned like a 3-week trip for myself. And so I did that, I think in 2024. I did that long trip coming to England, not knowing like really anything whatsoever what the tube was, what a train was, because we live in the southern part of the United States. So, like, our cars are our, 90% of transportation. We don't use public buses or trains or anything like that. Like our public bus system is really bad, so you can get into crime with that. So it's not anything anybody trusts. It's like a last minute thing that if you don't have any other way besides walking, that we do that. So I planned that. I watched Last Kingdom, so I was just like, okay, when I land in Heathrow there, like what my journey's going to be at all the places that I wanted to be. I'd read some reviews for sea houses.
Hmm.
And on the internet. And for me, that was interesting to me because actually my grandfather, he rented a beach house here in the States. He had like a 20-year lease on it. So we stayed in a beach house and did fishing, and oysters and crabs and all of these things. So a lot of my life has been around the sea. So that was
Hmm.
kind of like a logical place for me that I would be interested in.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
then also, I'm watching Last Kingdom. There's a lot, of the London's, ferry over there. So I was really interested in that. And my main intent really was to go to Bamburgh Castle.
Hmm.
So I was doing that. So those were some of the things. And then it was my first cruise on Queen Victoria with Cunard. So I have went to I boarded there at Southampton, and then we went to Germany. We went to all of northern England there. So I
Hmm.
spent time in doing that. So, and that was like really cool. That was a great trip there.
It's interesting you mentioned Seahouses, which is in the county of Northumberland, which is also it's a special place for you. It's one of the first places you went to, and your connection with the sea. And it's also a special place for me as well because it's a place that we regularly went to on family holidays. To Northumberland, big ancient county with beautiful coastline, amazing castles, gorgeous beaches, and yet some excellent seafood and fish and chips as well. Did you feel did you feel that real kind of historical connection when you were in Northumberland? Obviously you can see the history with the castles and it's got that big open feel. How did it make you feel being in sea houses and seeing Bamburgh Castle and experiencing it?
Like I say, England is like kind of home for me, so it was more of a, just a home feeling for me. And I'm used to the ocean. except, that ocean was a lot rougher than what we have here in the States, what I'm used to. So,
Yeah, the North Sea can be
the
pretty
North Sea,
rough. Yeah,
it
it
was
can get
really
quite
banging.
choppy. Yeah, yeah.
And in the little inn, I was like, where you climb a lot of stairs. So I was up in the little window up there. So I was doing some work, while I was there because I work while I'm traveling. And so then I got a chance, I don't know, just to watch, the ocean and everything. Unfortunately, when I landed in Heathrow, and then I actually had went to Windsor first, I got hit by the rain. Like the new temperature, the rain, the everything. I mean, I just totally got soaked. So I got a little bit sick. So a lot of bit sick to be frank with that. So when I was at Seahouses, I made it there. So when I was in Seahouses, then I walked out of there and went down to the drugstore. And so you guys things look different than it does for the US, but so anyway, I got something for it, and so I continued on with that. Fortunately, the little place in Sea Houses, I really loved it, because you have your rooms, but then they have like a full restaurant for breakfast and dinner, and the food was excellent in there. Then you had the view of the ocean too that you could walk
Lovely.
out to as well. So
Mhm,
I think it just pays off like doing your research,
mhm, mhm,
and
mhm,
seeing, like what is close to your heart, what is going to, make it a good trip for you,
yeah,
especially. So,
yeah.
but the historic stuff, definitely so. I kind of come, like I say, from a different background where, my grandparents, they're all Protestant. My mom was full-blooded Catholic, so so it's like a mixture of that there of, different religious relics and things like that,
Mhm, mhm.
I am familiar with. So, but it was like really fun. And I actually took, because I didn't really know my way around too much. And one word that I did learn that Americans really do not know is like, when you get in the line to your markets, or small grocery stores there, like what a queue is.
Yeah, and the British and the English love queuing. Yeah, that's the reputation, isn't it? Yeah, that we love to queue. There is some truth in that. There is some truth. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
because
can't deny it.
like in America, we'll have like one, two, three, four lines. You just get in one of those lines. It doesn't matter which line that you get in, when you edge your way up to the cash register there. But that wasn't, like true in England so much. It's like, these lines just kind of intermingled. So you
Yeah.
could be breaking in a line and not realize that you were, so.
And they're the little things, aren't they? They're actually big things that describe the differences in culture, even though British culture and American culture, it's got a lot of overlaps, very similar in many ways. And I've done a lot of traveling around the US and fantastic country. It's like 50 countries within one country. Although I've been to how many states? I've been to about 13, 14 states. But the small things are the things that describe the differences, really, aren't they? For example, what you were saying there about the queuing,
Yeah,
there is a lot of truth in that. Two other things as well. You mentioned differences where public transport is very important here. Whereas I know in America it's much more based around car ownership.
right.
A lot of people have cars here as well, but to get to work, probably a large percentage of people would use public transport, train or bus, rather than car. And you said also about you mentioned the British weather as well. And coming from Texas, that must have been maybe a little bit of a culture shock for you, because again, another truism about Britain, about England is I'm interchanging England and Britain here, is that it does rain a lot. We do get sun, and we actually are due a decent sunny warm spell soon, but it does rain a lot. So any trip, any holiday to the UK, that must be taken into consideration. You have to pack accordingly because it probably will rain. So, how did you find the weather when you were over here? Obviously, you got a bit ill with your flu, but what did you think about weather?
Well, the
If
good
all
thing
seasons
about
have gone
that
away.
situation, while I'm walking around, when I got off the train, they're not knowing where I was, and I tried to call a taxi, but where that train station is, there no cars can come through there, so you have to walk outside of there in order to get a bus or any taxi, anything like that. But as I was walking around, after some very kind people like that owned a department store there, they're like, oh, just come in here for a few minutes and just get dried off. And so they were
Yeah,
very sweet and very nice and everything. So I did that, and my brain kind of recalibrated there. But then
yeah,
I
yeah.
walked around the corner and it was like this beautiful coffee shop there. So coffee is my thing. So
Mhm.
I'm like, okay, thank you, God, because this is exactly what I needed. And so I got a cup of coffee. There was this big brown leather couch there. And so I just put my luggage down there. I sat there probably for a couple hours. I just sat there. I'm just like, okay. But behind that, they had like a full like outside like restaurant kind of thing. So it was pretty cool. So next time I go back to Windsor, I have to go back there and actually be able to absorb, like some of that. But the weather, I mean, I had pretty well prepared that it was going to be cold there, and I'm kind of cold in nature, so I had two or three layers on me, so I was pretty aware of that. But
Mhm. Mhm.
I learned to keep warm, but another difference I think for Americans, we're used to like, we have automatic like heating and automatic AC. So when
Mhm.
I was in sea houses, it's like you had to time everything out of when they were going to turn on
Yeah.
turn
Plan
on
it.
the heat and when they were turning off the heat, and
Yeah.
I finally got where I could say, okay, the towel rack is hot, so now I have heat in here, so I
You're
can
good to go.
start so I can start undressing a little bit.
Yeah.
So, but I would like just sleep in my clothes sometimes. I have brought long johns with me. So if I was cold or whatever, I would just like sleep in my clothes. But I think that's one big thing is here in America, we're used to, like everything is automatic. Where when you go to different countries like Europe, there's a lot of stairs that, we don't generally climb all the time. There's,
Mhm.
like the heating. I didn't experience any difference with the AC, of course, but with the heating, that was a big thing, like of what time to go to bed, what time you can take your shower before that gas is shut off or whatever they're using for heat. But I mean, once it is turned on, I mean, it's like really warm. But
Mhm.
you just have to adjust those things. And then I think like when I was getting like on and off buses, of knowing like for you guys what side of the street you're going to have to be on as to what direction that you're flowing. So, I learned that. And then, just in getting on the bus when you're waiting for it to wait for people to get off before you get on. Typically like like a bus here, you would have like several doors. And some buses in England do have several doors. But a lot of times in some smaller places, it's just one door, going on. And then, you really have to know like where it is that you're supposed to get off at, because sometimes even with your phone, your GPS is like going in and out, especially, with American phones, and the internet that we're connecting to. So that was kind of an experience there.
And with these various different challenges, which it's interesting to hear you describe them because pretty much everything you're talking about to me is second nature because I live here, I'm in this society. So to hear you describing them as like challenging at first is really interesting. But of course, that's what it's like when you go traveling to a different country, isn't it? You have to adjust and you have to learn how certain what things are done and what the customs are. And so, is that something that you enjoyed embracing those differences? Did you enjoy those challenges? Or were you a little bit daunted at times? And also, did you find people to be friendly as you went along on your trip generally?
First off, yes, I found people to be like very friendly. So, I mean, it was, the vibes were like really nice and everything. So it was really good as far as that goes. I think the most challenging part, and I learned to relax through it, and I think that's the biggest tip I can give anybody, whether it is, you visit into a country, like England or somewhere in Northern Europe, or even if you come to the States here,
Hmm.
is, just not to just try and relax and kind of go with the flow. Don't, fight like whatever is going on of the things that you cannot control, you can only do, like what you can do. Because like for you guys, say you come to the United States, you might expect all these buses and trains and things like that. And you'll be highly disappointed, especially in the South here, because we have none of that, in New
Hmm.
York. Okay, they've got the buses and all those things that aren't that safe, so most people aren't wanting to go that route. But I would say probably the tube was like the most challenging for me. That was the
Hmm.
most challenging. And just, with the luggage that you have, even though I pack like really light, you've got a lot of stairs you're going up and down. And so, like for you guys, lift, we're used to saying the elevator. So you're looking for signs that says elevator. You're not looking for signs that say lift. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
then you have to kind of learn those terms a little bit there. Even though for me, David, I mean, for a year and a half, I mean, I watched tons of videos with people, getting on the tube, connecting here and connecting there. But in reality, when you're doing it, and especially if you're by yourself, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
trying to get like from one train station and figuring out, especially like not just in London, but Windsor, going to different places, like what the stations' names are and where those stations connect to, like what cities, what villages, what areas those connect to. So as you are changing, like on the tube, say you have to change 2 or 3 times, that kind of what direction you're going to.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
mean, the tube is really good. I mean, it does have, like up, the next stop and all of those things. But like, as somebody that's never been there before, that doesn't tell us like a whole lot because we have no vision in our mind, where north is, south is, what town is here and what town is there. So
Hmm.
I think probably the tube was uh, the
The
most
biggest challenge.
complicated for
Yeah.
me. It still isn't a place I can go and get on the tube, but it's not like one of those things I look incredibly, you know, want to go and do that. But I did discover like one time I was supposed to be going south and I got on the tube going north. But I just politely got off, crossed over the other side, and then just got back to where I was going. And I think that's why it's important too, if you're making plans, like to ride on a train, a specific seat, a specific time, of making sure, you've got a couple hours even, within, the time that it's going to leave, or you might have lost that train and have to buy another ticket. Fortunately
Hmm.
for me, when I was going, I think I was going up towards Seahouses, on Southwestern, I had bought an all day ticket, anytime ticket. And so that worked out for me because I did not make it at the time that I was supposed to make it. Definitely
Hmm.
not. But people helped me get there. And I think it's when I was at, I don't remember the biggest uh, tube train station in right outside of London. What is the name of that? You know what
I
I'm
feel
talking
like I should
about?
know this. What is it outside of London, is it? Is it on the underground itself, or is it once you go
It's
into the
across
overground?
from the underground. It's the biggest one you guys have, I think, that
Also King's
intersect.
Cross or Euston,
Yeah,
or yeah. Is it one of
yeah,
those? Or St. Pancras?
yeah. It was the St. Pancras there.
St.
Yeah,
Pancras, yeah.
yeah,
There's
because
about six massive train stations intersections in London, yeah. Yeah, St.
it
Pancras
is.
is yeah.
And
That's
that
one of
one is
them.
like trains
Yeah.
like going everywhere, they're
Yeah.
going
I
to,
think the sorry, I think we got a little glitch there. I think
yeah,
the Eurostar over to France go from St. Pancras as well.
yeah, yeah. So, but anyway, I got lost in that one. So this, I was a little bit on the scared side, but this like really big guy, he came up to me asking, to if he could help me. And of course, you get all of these notices, don't let anybody touch your bags and, don't, be getting that close with anybody. But at this point, I'm just like, okay, I'm just going to have to take a chance on this because I'm lost. But
Yeah.
anyway, he stopped, he took my bag, he took me all the way to where I was supposed to be. He's like, "Oh, I know exactly where you're supposed to be at and what train you're supposed to be getting on." So he took me right to my next destination. So that was like really good. So, everybody was friendly there for me, just, helping you
That's
get
good.
around. And of course, when I took the what is it? Leonard, how do you say that?
The
L-N-E-R?
LNER, yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah, yeah.
took that actually from Pancras there to Allamouth there. And
Mhm.
so that was like a really nice ride. I did pay extra, for the chair and snack and that kind of thing. But that was really cool. I really enjoyed like riding those trains. I get a little bit seasick and car sick. So I had to end up turning around where I'm not, looking at everything flashing, in front of me.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
that was the only part there. And then I met some people. I think when I was coming back or something, they were catching another train going to Edinburgh, so they were going north. So I met a lot of nice people. But when I got to Allenmouth there, I had set up a cab to pick me up there because I
Mhm.
didn't find a bus that was going from there to Seahouses. I think they travel from there to Allneck there, and then that's where
Yeah.
the train is on that side. But anyway,
Another beautiful castle in Alnwick as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. So I never did go over that way. I just took my direct path, but the cab drive was, just fine, and he took me straight up to see houses and to my hotel and everything, my inn that I was staying at. So that was pretty cool.
And how did you find just talking about trains and travel and public transport? How easy was it? How efficient was everything? What is your kind of like general opinion on how well things are running in England as a
I think
as a
it's
traveler
ran.
who's been
I
here a
think
couple of
it's
times now?
ran like really good, but I would look up on the internet, the shortest way here or there, and some of the Facebook groups, of how to get from here to there. Of course, you would get all different directions because everybody goes all kind of different ways. So you have to pick out the one that, for me, it was like not the shortest all the time, but just my clearest path of I know, from A to B, this is where I'm going to be. The cab's going to pick me up, and then they're going
Hmm.
to drive me to my inn. So
Hmm.
for me, I kind of looked on that side, especially when you're traveling solo, just so you kind of know, what you're doing. And sometimes you don't know if somebody's going to pick you up or not, so you just kind of, hopefully they do, and you have a phone number. So that kind of thing, which I had like two phones. So I had, when I arrived at Heathrow, what I did is I stopped by the Vodafone there. And so I got a whole SIM card put in an extra phone that I had. So I had one phone that is all England phone numbers and all of that, internet and all that kind of good stuff. And then I have my phone from the US. just because I work, while I'm traveling, and
Yeah.
sometimes I have to get like codes or passwords or something like that. So then I would just turn on my phone like once a day, if I had to get that stuff. But the phone that I had that I got at the airport, that's what I use like for getting all around, jumping from train to the tube to everything that I did. That was my primary phone. So that was a lot, that was like very helpful.
Hmm. Hmm.
So if you're fortunate enough to have two phones like that, where okay, this phone is just for inside England or, North Europe or whatever, and this phone is the US. I'm with Verizon, so every time you turn on the phone, it was $10 or $20 or something. So you just have to make use of all that time, that once you turn the phone on. But I do that on cruises too. Like if you are getting your internet service on the cruise ship, you're having to buy their internet service because you can't use your regular phone. So as soon as I get to a port, then I start using my regular phone, from the US, where I pay $10 for the whole day. And then I can use that to text people or to phone people or,
Yeah.
or do whatever I want to do. And also, like one night when I was in Seahouses, my son was worried or something. So he FaceTimed me on there on Facebook. So that's another way. I know a lot of people have questions, of how they get in touch with their family and things like that. But
Hmm. Hmm.
that's kind of the way because honestly, when you're on the cruise ship, there's not too many ways, like really to get in touch with people unless, like me, I pay for the premium, so you could always get in touch with me through email, which most of
Hmm.
my business I do primarily through email, so it didn't affect, me that much. But it does take some practice, David. I would say, doing your research, know where you're going to land at, what platform you're going to land at, and then
Hmm.
what platform you've got to walk to from there, whether you go, up the stairs, down the stairs. Because like at Heathrow, you've got all kind of different platform names. So, you're just trying to get through there. And I think
Hmm.
it's a little confusing that Heathrow with the tube, that like you get the ticket, like just to free for free from the airport itself to get to the tube that you don't have to pay for. And then, when you get to the actual platform, that's when you're going to scan your card or credit card or whatever to get where you need to get. So I saw a lot of people confused about that too.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because you think you have your ticket in your hand on your phone, and then the tube they're telling you you've got to get this free ticket too. So that can be a little bit confusing to you.
Yeah, and there are some oddities in association with public transport that even I've noticed. So, in this country, frustrations and things sometimes that don't make sense, quirks really, but that can be problematic. So these are important considerations for people who are traveling. Something else I wanted to ask you about was obviously you arrived in London, you've experienced London, big global hub. Massive city of 8, 9 million people. It's a frenetic city. It's so busy. I mean, there's that famous quote when a man is bored of London, he is bored of life because it's just absolutely teeming with things to do. But it's also very, very frenetic is the word for me. And once you get out of London into most other places, the pace of life is more sedate, whether it's in smaller cities and certainly out in the countryside. I just wanted to hear your thoughts really on the differences that you've experienced in kind of atmosphere, London in comparison to the other places, smaller places that you've been to in England.
Of course, I did land in Heathrow, David. It was never, a priority for me to stay in England and London. There were a couple things like the Albert House and Churchill and a couple places I did want to go to, but it wasn't worth doing the whole London thing for me.
Hmm.
So I
Hmm.
really just used London as a flyby.
Okay.
When
Yeah.
I was returning, I did stay. I I thought a place that was close to the tube and then that was close to the airport. But I think in these little areas, you have to be, especially, if you've never been to England before, kind of be careful about, the crime scene in those areas.
Yeah.
And most, all through the airports and the tube, I mean, everybody was incredibly nice. I
Mm-hmm.
did happen just to get in a bad pocket, is what I call it.
Mm-hmm.
But you just use safety, and it happens in the United States too. You have to do the
Mm-hmm.
same thing. I mean, you have some of these pockets that aren't quite as good as others.
Yeah.
So I
Mm-hmm.
just think you have to be careful with that. But I don't know. I had a great time. I planned that myself. I have to say it was really a perfect, trip. Yeah, absolutely perfect. Bamburgh Castle, it was like really nice there. Of course, it is all outside, so we don't even know that. We just assume, as Americans, you have like heat in places, but it was really cold outside, as you can see in some of my pictures where I'm just all covered up there, but it was freezing there. So you drank
It's
plenty of.
usually cold up on the northeast coast at any time of the year. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and because I had taken a bus, so I had to walk way up that driveway
Yeah.
to get up to the castle too.
Mhm.
But you drink plenty of tea and plenty of coffee, and so, you
And
know,
where else did you go? So you use London as a base, not as a base, as you flew into and out of London, but you wanted to discover the unseen, kind of England, the England that a lot of tourists wouldn't see, I should say, because a lot will stick to London. So where do you? We know you went to Northumberland, Bamburgh, Seahouses. You mentioned you've been to Windsor and Winchester as well. Which
yeah.
other places have you been to? And just secondary to that, because I think I'm right in saying you're planning another trip next year or the year after. So where are you hoping to visit?
Yeah, I went and I spent some time because I went to Osborne House. So I did spend some time, a really nice B&B over on the Isle of Wight there. So that was like it was on the Shanklin side. So
Yeah.
that was really cool there. And I could walk to a lot of places there. And, the bus stop was just like right there. So that was like really good. And going to Osborne House, that was like one of my main things too.
Hmm.
Two of my main things really were Osborne House and to Bamburgh Castle.
Hmm. Hmm.
Those were two of my points I was trying to get to. And they had some really nice wine at the Osborne restaurant there. So that was pretty cool. Very different, than like the way that we get served in America versus, getting served in England because for you guys, it's more self-service than, like people actually waiting on you. So that was a little bit different for me there. Um,
Hmm.
but but yeah, I went and did that. So, but I really like the Isle of Wight a lot. So when
Hmm.
I will be going back, I actually kind of semi-retire in August of 2027. So
Okay.
what I'm planning on doing then, I'll probably go back to Windsor again because I really like Windsor too. And Winchester was fabulous too. A lot of history there in Winchester, of course. You
Yeah,
know,
that was kind of like the capital of England, really, in the Anglo-Saxon times, Winchester. Yeah,
yeah. So, you had King Alfred's statue,
that's
and
right.
then I ran into this little pilgrim cemetery that was quite interesting to me. I'm not sure that would be interesting to anybody else, but it was quite interesting to me with the stone and, just the different years on the tombstones and things like
Hmm.
that, and windows and things like that. So it was really good. But this trip, I am planning on coming into Heathrow, and I'll probably go to Windsor and see if I can stay at that same hotel. It's just right around the corner from Windsor Castle there, so you can see the guard change, and they have the
What's
best.
the hotel called then, just in case anyone's planning a trip to
I think
Windsor?
it's just called Windsor Hotel.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
think it's just called Windsor Hotel or Windsor Inn, something
Hmm.
like that. It's a
Yeah.
little bit on the expensive side, but it's like really nice. But they
Yeah.
have coffee machines in the rooms there, and I'll have to say whatever Italian machine that they have in there, I mean,
Good
it
stuff.
is.
The good stuff, is it? Yeah, good if you're a coffee aficionado, which you said you are, then yeah, it must be good coffee.
It is
Yeah.
out of the world. It's worth the stay just for the coffee in your room.
There's
But
a
I'll
big shout
probably,
out for that hotel. And yeah.
yeah, when I land like in England, like coming from the US, because it's like an 8 hour flight. And so we usually leave here in the afternoon and we get there like 7 o'clock in the morning. So,
Hmm.
taking the tube all the way to Windsor, taking that, and then probably stay there a week, and then I'm getting on Queen Victoria again in Southampton, and then I'm going on a 10-day, I think it's a 10 or a 12-day tour to Iceland. So I'll
Wow.
I'll see
Yeah.
hopefully see some of those northern lights, but it'll be interesting. I love Cunard's Queen Victoria. Is like so relaxing and a lot of nice, dancing. I enjoy dancing, so I'm kind of a country and western dancer here. A lot of waltz and two step and things
Okay.
like
Right.
that.
Yeah.
So it's quite interesting to me. So this trip, I'm hoping like to have a little bit more relaxation time than I've had in the last couple trips, but it's still, all been awesome. I'm thankful that I get to work and travel at the same time. That is definitely a big advantage, but I'm going to go there, go on the cruise. And when I get back, I will be heading back up towards North England. And then I want to stop through Wales. And so I want to make a trip there to Wales. I'll probably go up to Edinburgh just for a day. I'm not
Hmm.
too much about big cities and that type of thing. I get pretty bored with that, but um,
Edinburgh's a beautiful city, and it's very atmospheric, and it's also very relaxed as well. So even
does
though it's
it?
busy like London, it's not got the same feel. It's
Okay.
very relaxed, and it's very aesthetically beautiful as well. Some amazing buildings and architecture, excellent pubs in Edinburgh as well. So I do recommend Edinburgh. You mentioned North Wales. You mentioned Wales. I'd definitely recommend the North Wales coast and
Okay.
Snowdonia as well. There's the Lake District, which will be within striking distance, or the Peak District as well.
Okay.
But something I was gonna, as a last question for you, something we've briefly touched on is the food. So just wanted to hear your experiences on what nice dishes you've had when you've been in England. Obviously, we're famous for things like fish and chips, roast dinners, the great British fry up in the morning, the great British breakfast, and afternoon tea as well, sandwiches and scones and things like that. Did you sample any traditional fare, and was there any particular favorites?
At Seahouses, yes, I got some fish and chips. I'm not like a big fish person. I'm more of
Hmm.
like, more on the meat side of things. So walked into a nice restaurant there, family restaurant, and another family was there. So I mean, I basically just sat with another family. And so everything was home cooked, coming straight out
Hmm.
the kitchen. In fact, after
Lovely.
they served us like at the table, I mean, they just stood outside there and talked with us and things like that. So it's not like our typical, like restaurants that we have here. So it was just a family experience there. I
Mhm.
did go walk by the seaside. They had what we call some food trucks out that way. But,
Mhm.
the food there I didn't like recognize too much, and I wasn't too sure about, the way you guys cook some of the seafood. And so I grew up on the
Is it
ocean,
nice?
so I kind of know what some of those words mean. And so I'm like, no, I don't think I want that, so
Yeah.
but I didn't do that. But at Sea Houses, I had some really good food there. I really liked the English food. The potatoes and the lamb chop was, outstanding. So I always
Oh,
got something really good to eat every day. My
Mhm.
kids, tease me because I don't put like a lot of seasoning and things in food. I think so. It just, I enjoy the food there because it's just a natural thing for me. So,
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
there's not, most Americans will complain with English food, it's bland. So
Mhm.
that's
Mhm.
what Americans will complain. But for me, it was great. It was really good
Yeah.
beer. I had me some nice beer. I love craft beer. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I had some fabulous beer there. I had some really good food on Queen Victoria too, and some of their specialty restaurants and their chefs, and on one of my trips, I don't think the first trip, but the second trip, we stopped in Portugal, and I really enjoyed Portugal. They had
Mhm.
some really good beer there in Portugal too. And so I just, when we were just
Amazing
stopping for,
seafood in Portugal as well.
yeah,
Incredible
well,
seafood,
this
you know.
this place we stopped at in Portugal, some people went on tours or whatever. I didn't. Sometimes I just get off the ship and I just like go walking around on the local area because that's just what I enjoy doing.
Yeah.
I enjoy like the people and the local culture, more than I like the rest of that. But, they were having, it was like I think it was a Catholic school there. And so
Mhm.
they were having this little festival, and then there were two or three shops. And so I walked in one, like, I think to get donuts, but I ended up with a beer. So
Not a bad deal. Worked out
but it
okay
was just
for you.
like, like 10 o'clock in the morning or something. It was just like kind of in between. So I have some really cool pictures with the people that own that little walk-in, where you get croissants and things like that from. So that was like really cool there. And then of course I had to climb a bunch of stairs back up again. And I just have to be careful, like when I get off at a port or something like that, that I'm watching my pathway to know where I came from so I know how to get back to where I'm going.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
You would
yeah,
think with this big ship out there, you wouldn't have any problem like getting back, to the ship port and where the walkway is that you're going to walk back on. But it can be tricky sometimes, of how you
yeah.
kind of have to walk in a circle to get where you want.
Mhm.
So that was pretty cool. And I think when on one of my tours, when we stopped in Germany, um, and it was more like an industrial area there, I went on the most fabulous tour there that I just thought it was going to be, like a bus coach, kind of tour there. But it was only a few of us, but we got on that bus and then it stopped at like a river area right there in Germany. And then we got on this old steamboat. And
Mhm.
so they took us like all around the canal and everything, the river, and like where a lot of very influential, wealthy people live there. And it was interesting, all of the way everybody maneuvers, with everything. Of one person's got to get to this side, one person has to get to this side, determine on, how big your boat was or your raft or whatever you're in. But
Mhm.
that was like just the most fabulous tour I think that I went on.
Mhm.
So
Oh,
that was
brilliant.
really good. And
Yeah.
then coming back on the steamboat there, then the guy, he had some really good beer as well.
This is
So
becoming a theme now, isn't it?
yeah. And one thing that I do is I always, whatever country I'm in, have some currency of that, 50 or 60 pounds or whatever, because it gives you, like money to buy things like that. Or, some tours you might have to leave a tip, though I know, mainly in Europe, you guys don't leave tips, but on those kind of tours, the
Yeah.
people did. And then also people would tell me, that were, English or whatever, only leave this amount or that amount. And I always respect that because a lot of people, what they did, like in going to Mexico, like Americans, they like left, like a lot of money there and it messes up an economy. So you have to think about those kind of things, of living in the local life, doing what local people do and just, you know, doing the things that they do. If you're going to places where you do leave a tip, then do it with moderation, follow, whoever is there, you know,
Yeah.
and go
When
from
in
there.
Rome, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
so I did learn that like in my travels with that, to kind of go with that flow. Because
Mhm.
like, anybody from England comes to the United States, our tip system is a huge tip system, so you have to leave tips like everywhere. Um,
Mhm.
they have one advertisement the other day, like a waitresses, they get paid $2 an hour. So that's what the establishments pay them. And so that's why we have to leave tips.
Yeah, to supplement their
Yeah.
wages. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Where like in England, you guys pay a lot more, like, in
There's a
wages. You
minimum
guys,
wage. Yeah, there's a minimum wage that's
yeah.
I think it's about £12.50 an hour, something like that, approximately, something like that.
We have
But
that
yeah,
with our regular jobs, but not with like our restaurants.
not in the
So,
service
yeah.
industry and the
So
hospitality. Yeah.
yeah, so that's just a different, thing there.
Hmm.
So, but it's been all enjoyable, for me. And so I've got to, a chance to see a lot of, great places. And I kind of,
Yeah.
I pick the places that I want to. Now I know the places I want to go back to, like spend extra time there, then add on a couple new places. I know sometimes people are like nervous about like making their travel arrangements and, traveling solo and all of these things. But I think, just preparation for anything is always the key to it,
Hmm.
and if you get somewhere, you miss a train, you miss a bus, just go find a hotel to stay in and start again.
Embrace it. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's just to wrap up. You've touched on it a couple of times. I think that's the essence of traveling, isn't it? Is to if you go in with the expectation that everything's going to run like clockwork, you're going to be disappointed. Whereas if you go and just try and embrace whatever the experience brings to you, then nice surprises they come along. You end up in places you never thought you would end up. You meet people that you otherwise wouldn't have done. You have an amazing meal somewhere that you in a place that you had no intention of going to. So I think that's the difference between traveling and tourism, isn't it, really? But thanks very much, Helen, for your
Okay.
very kind contributions with your recollections of your traveling in England, your family history, what you've loved about your experiences in England, and obviously what you're planning for next time. And as well, you've given some really good useful insights into if there's anybody else who's watching this, maybe if they're from America as well. I know I do have some American subscribers, so it's just really useful and interesting for me to hear the challenges that I would never have thought about because, as I say, most things it's just second nature to me because I live here. So I'm going to put this video on the recording of this video on Roots of England YouTube channel. If you are watching it, please do subscribe and let us know what you think about Helen's what she said. Is there anything in particular that you've resonated with? Have you been to any of the places that she's been to? Is there a part of her story that you found really interesting? Leave a comment. As I say, there will be a link in the description to the video to join Roots of England Skool community that Helen herself is also a part of. And just to finish up, Helen, you've also got your own Skool community. Can you tell us what that is about and who you're able to help?
Yes, it's called Bookkeeper's Connection. So, I was brought up in the construction industry. Me and my husband ran a construction business. So I help people that are wanting to start their bookkeeping business. So whether you're in the UK or you're in the United States, all the principles still work. I know there's quite a few bookkeepers there in the UK that I run into as well. So, you can catch me at Bookkeeper's Connection. That's generally where I'm at. And I have a YouTube channel as well. So I'm in both of those places. But I just want to let you guys know if you have like any questions, about going to England or even traveling to Europe, just, hit me up with any questions you have. I love to help people's trips, like more enjoyable. So you're spending more time enjoying, exploring the areas, and less time worrying about what time to get to a train station, or if this is too early, if this is too late, or how many hours it takes to get there. Just keep in mind, if you're from the United States, England for us is very small. So you can get from one end of it, from the south to the north, within 8 hours.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, that's very true. Well, what we'll do is I'll put a link to your school community and to your YouTube channel. And if there's any particular way that you'd prefer people to get in touch, whether that's email or whatever, let me know, Helen, at the end of this
Okay.
call, and I'll put that in. So in the link to the description of this video, we'll have the link to Helen's school community, to her YouTube channel, and to my school community as well. And I just want to say thanks very much, Helen,
Thank
for
you. Yeah, and
being a
David
really
runs
great guest.
a really good Roots of England school community. So I think it's a good, like safe community. I know there's a lot out there. And so, David, I appreciate you having me on your channel as well.
No
But it's
problem.
a good resource, just to meet people and, just talk to people too as you're planning things. You never know where you might end up at.
That's very true. That's very true. And on that note, we'll wrap it up. So thanks again, Helen. Really appreciate it. Thanks everybody for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, over and out.